Our Lifetime Achievement Award. This is really given to people who have, mainly as players, but just had a fantastic success, and not just on the golf course, but also off the golf course. We launched this award in 2011, with the first recipient being Seve, and anybody who was there will remember how emotional that was, and it was so fitting that he was the first recipient. We then had Tony Jacklin, Bernhard Langer, Nick Faldo, Alison Nicholas, Bernhard Gallacher, Robert Karlsson, just some great recipients of this award. And the next in line, and we're very proud to have him joining us, this year's recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award really doesn't need too much of an introduction because his achievements speak for themselves. But Colin, it's absolutely fantastic that you can join us today, and congratulations on all you've achieved.
And I just want to thank the CPG for honouring me this way. A Lifetime Achievement Award means an awful lot, especially when you're getting on in years. I'm 57 now, and it's something that I've treasured. And of course, look, it's already, the trophy arrived, and it's up in a very prominent place at my study here, and will remain. A very, very honoured and treasured recipient, I must admit.
So you're following in some great names, but your impact on golf, and European golf particularly, has been extremely significant, and this is richly reserved. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go back to 1991, but your first win at the Portuguese Open. What do you remember of that?
It was amazing. You know, you turn pro from a decent amateur career. You know, you never know how it's going to pan out. I went to the tour school and went down to Portugal, as you say. It was the TPC at the time, the Portuguese TPC at Quinta do Lago. I'll never ever forget it, obviously, and had a week that I'll never forget. You know, to win by 11 shots, your first event, that doesn't happen. And every putt I looked at went in. Ken was there. He saw me through my career. And, I'd like to think that Ken and I were together in enabling the European Tour to grow. This was just as the European Tour was going east, through the Middle East, through Dubai, and out the other end into India, China, Thailand, and also Australia. The vision of Ken Schofield to take it east was, I think, the making of the European Tour, and I was glad that I was just in his slipstream, along with a lot of the European faithful, and we were very, very grateful to Ken's vision to put all this together. But the Portuguese Open was a special one. You know, when you think of the first win by 11, and I think the next 10 wins were by 1. So it proves that where did that 11 come from, for goodness sake, you know? But it was a very special week, and every time I think about Portugal, think about Quinta do Lago, I have great memories. Yeah.
Well, I've never been in that position, unfortunately, but winning by 11 sounds easier than winning by 1. The pressure down the stretch must have been a little bit off your shoulders.
Well, it was. You know, I could afford a 15 at the last and still win, so that was okay. You know, it's amazing as time passed. And you say Lifetime Achievement Award. I was actually playing that day with the late Gordon Brand Jr. And he passed away this year. And last year, and amazing really to think that how time passes so quickly. When you talk about Seve's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011, and he passed away that year. And it was just, it's amazing how time passes, and you've got to treasure every moment.
31 tour wins, 20 in a 7-year span. You top the order of merit 7 years running, averaging 69.85 according to my notes here, over 139 events with 14 runner-ups and 39 top 10s. Obviously a fantastic period of golf for you.
Well, it was my era. I'd like to, if somebody does beat any of those records, especially the 7 Race to Dubai Orders of Merit in a row, I'd be the first to shake their hand, believe me, because I know how difficult it was. It might not happen with the standard nowadays, and there's no one particularly dominant right now. But hey, who knows in 20 years' time? But I'll be the first to shake the hand because I know how difficult it was. The first one, yes, and then I'll never forget Seve. After I won at Valderrama in 93, he said to me, Monty, because we're playing together the last round, and he said, remember, he says, that's ordre de merit. He says, this is just on loan. He said, just on loan, because he'd won it the previous year. And I'll never forget he said that. And it gave me an added incentive to try and do it again. And I was a great believer in if you stood still, you know, you were overtaken. Or if you weren't improving, you were overtaken. And I knew I had to improve. I knew that. I wasn't as good still as the Faldos, Woosnam, Lyle, Langer, Seve, Olazábal even, you know, the greats of European golf. I didn't think I was as good then as they were. So I had to improve. So 94 happened, and then 95, and then it was a sort of conveyor belt in many ways. I couldn't really leave it. 96 and 97, 98, 99. When you add it all up, you think, God, you know, where did it all go? But it was a great time. It was a great time for me personally. It was a good time for European golf. It was a great time. You know, majors were being won, and our big five was still competing well. The Ryder Cups were a great success in 95, 97, you know, to win it both those years and to do so well in 99. It was a good time for European golf. But I must admit, with Ken Schofield's vision, it was a super time to be taken on, and to go east was the saving of our tour. And it was a great vision of him, because nobody had thought that the European tour could actually leave Europe, and it did. And thank goodness it did. Yeah.
I know Ken's told me the story about, I think it was Tunisia was the first outside of Europe, and how you discussed that within the players committee as to whether it's the right thing to do or not. And obviously it's proven that it has been.
Yes. Well, I mean, it was growing so much. There were when I joined the tour, you know, there was 40 odd tournaments on the tour. And in Europe, you know, there possibly wasn't 40 countries playing the game. So they all couldn't have a national open. So what did we do? How did we get, you know, without playing every tournament in Britain, that was an established golfing nation? We had the French Open, the Spanish Open, the Dutch, the Danish, the Swedish. But we had to go east, and that was the making of it. Dubai was the start. And it's interesting, you know, as we speak, where are they now? You know, the race to Dubai is in Dubai right now, and they're playing the final event. So it's quite poignant of the timing of this. Yeah. Yeah, we just spoke with Keith on the panel earlier, calling in from Dubai, and success there, which is great. So it was on loan, but it was an extended loan. 7 years was quite a decent loan. How did that? You know, once you kept winning it, did that take some of the pressure off, or did it increase it because you then became the favourite to win it? Obviously, in the next year. Well, it increased it. I was fortunate enough to always improve in my career. When I first turned pro in 88, I was 52nd on the tour, and then I was 25th, I was 14th, then 4th and 3rd, and then 1st, and then 1st and 1st and 1st. So I couldn't really feel as if, no, it didn't take any pressure off. It actually put it on, having to finish that way. It's a bit like if you're the second best football team in Scotland, well, you know, I'm afraid you're very much second best. You know, you're either first or you're not. And I didn't want to feel as if I was going backwards. So it was more pressure every year to sustain what had been put out the previous year. And it was a very much more pressure was added every year to what was going on. Yeah.
And who did you see as your main rivals at that time?
Well, it started, you know, when you think about the first one in 93, you think about the 6 guys that were ahead of me. I came into that tournament in 7th place and ended up winning the thing because of results just happened to go away. But when you think of the 6 guys that were ahead of me, Seve, Langer, Faldo, Woosnam, Ronan Rafferty, Olazábal, I mean, world players. I mean, how the hell could I beat them in one tournament? But it just also happened to come around. So they were my initial competition. Langer has remained that way for the last 30 years, for goodness sake. He's still my main competition. But, Faldo was still the ranked #1 in the world. Seve, of course, was still competing to that level. Lyle. And then it sort of took a different turn about 95, 96, where the next generation came through. A very young Darren Clark, a very young Lee Westwood, some people, Harrington, these type of guys, Robert Karlsson, these guys that were coming through in Europe that were really ambitious, really, and wanted success. So I had to stem the Faldo era and Seve's era, if you like, with Langer, and also that new breed that was coming through that were hungry, very hungry for success. So I stemmed a couple of not generations, but you can see the early days were different than the latter ones, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you always seem to have a fairly natural swing. I know you weren't, you didn't spend ages on the practice ground, but no. Kind of where did that get grooved with it? Obviously, we're in amongst PGAs and pros here. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess a swing that didn't really change.
Well, yeah, I fell out the cradle playing golf, really, and my father's business moved down to Yorkshire in England from Glasgow when I was 6 years old. So I really learned to play the game in Yorkshire at Ilkley Golf Club, and the local pro there was a chap, Bill Ferguson, and he really taught me how to play the game. My dad had taught me the etiquette of the game and how to attend the pin, how to rake a bunker, how not to move and where to stand and all the stuff that one has to do. But Bill Ferguson taught me how to play the game. And he was very good. He was I think he won the English PGA a few times. He played in the PGA Cup a few times. And he was a good player. And I used to caddy for him on Saturdays, the Captain Pro Challenge at Ilkley Golf Club. You know these things. And I used to caddy for him, and he used to teach me certain shots he had, and he used to say, right, I'm going to play it this way. This is a clovey lie. The ball's going to come out quicker. Always remember that. He was a great mentor of mine, and I've always thought the world of him, and he was the reason I'm speaking to you today.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. PGA Pro at the very heart. I mean, so much more than just being a coach.
Yes,
the real mentor, which is what we've been talking about. Yeah. It would be remiss of me now not to move on to Ryder Cup, because so much of your career has been synonymous with it. Again, I'll take some of Ken's stats, but 8 playing matches, 5 winning teams, including 2 away, unbeaten in the singles with 6 wins, 2 halves. He does mention Scott Hoke at Valderrama, where, I mean, that was a moral victory. 1995 at Oak Hill as well. We'll come on to that. But you became a leader in that Ryder Cup team, and obviously took pride going out first as well. It must have meant a lot to you.
Oh, very much. Very much. When you turn pro, and I was saying that, finishing 52nd my first year, there was nowhere near Ryder Cup standard, and then you suddenly make the team in 91. And I remember stood there, never forget the Ryder Cup. My first Ryder Cup memory really was at Kiawah Island in 91. And if you remember, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers and listeners will remember this very well, where Bernhard Langer unfortunately missed a 7-8 foot putt to win the Ryder Cup away from home. And never forget ever going back to the team room. And I was just a rookie, a real young rookie. I mean, just absolutely wet behind the ears. And never forget Seve hugging Bernhard Langer and crying their eyes out. And I'll never forget that scene as long as I live. And that to me brought home what the Ryder Cup meant to them, having lost it, having tried the damnedest to do it against a very strong American team and a very difficult circumstance. Remember, it's called the War on the Shore, And from then on, I said, right, I want to get back in this team again. I want to do this again. I really do. I want to perform, and I want to see them, and I want to become Langer or Seve. I want to become a leader of this team somehow. And it just so happened that because of my individual play, I became a sort of member of a team, obviously the Ryder Cup team. And because I was playing well and never really had a sort of down time in my career, I did okay, you know. And really, I think I've got a lot to thank Sam Torrance for as the captain. I think he was a fantastic captain in 2001 that became 2002 when he put me out first in the singles. And then I really believed then that I was leading the team out. He put me first to get blue on the board. It was 8-all. It was tied after the first 2 days of competition. So we all had to play for. And he put me out first. And from then I really felt that I was a leader and I had a job to do. And if I was a leader, I could not lose. And I happened to play some of my best golf that particular day and came out winning. And the team themselves did a fantastic job and scraped through. And we won it for Sam, really. And a good friend of mine, a good Scots friend of mine. And, we've got battles around. But he was the reason I became the leader of that Ryder Cup team on the playing field. I wasn't leading because there was always a captain, but I felt from then on that I was a leader on the course as opposed to off it, where the captain is more readily. So I've got a lot for Sam Torrance to thank for that.
Yeah, and you thrived in that role as well, which was,
Well, I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm a great believer in life. If you enjoy something, you're usually quite good at it. And I thoroughly enjoyed that position. Yes, I was nervous. Don't get me wrong. I didn't sleep at night, but I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, that first tee nerves is I'll never forget the Belfry in 2002. The first tee nerves. I had to back off my shot twice because the crowd were sort of, they wouldn't keep quiet. It was amazing what these Ryder Cups were and what they meant to us all. But we played as a team, you know, and you can talk about individual success, but I've always got more out of a team participation. I've got more out of winning as a team. I've enjoyed the after play as a member of a team than I ever did individually. Individually, you might have won and you thought, God, is that my last win? Is that it? Is that how can I improve? How can I get, you know? And it was always a bit of a pressure. As a member of a team with 11 other teammates there helping you out, it was an amazing feeling to do it as one, you know, to get together and to beat the might of America, which you know, there were always favourites throughout my career. And yet, as you say, you know, I managed out of 8, you know, we managed to win 5 of them out of 8, which is a reasonable record for the small might of Europe, if you like, against the huge might of America. Yeah.
And that, you know, that's changed. That was that period of really changing that, the not European dominance, but certainly swinging towards European success during that period. I mean, you talk of playing in a team and kind of raising your game for the team. Who were your favourite partners to play with?
Well, I was lucky in many ways. You know, I mean, my first partner was Bernhard Langer, and it went through. I think Bernhard and I played, 6 times together. We got 5 points, and remember, I think 3 of those were against Tiger Woods and his friends. So I mean, it was you know, fantastic to think that we did so well together. He was always playing my sort of game. We played a very safe game. In 4-ball, we both hit the fairways, both hit the greens. We had 2 putts for the hole, and in foursomes, we never really missed a shot between us, to be honest. You know, we're unbeaten in foursomes. It was I really enjoyed Bernhard's company and the way he went round the game. The professionalism of it was just extreme. Of course, to play with number 1 in the world at the time in '93 of Nick Faldo was something that I learnt a lot from. To play all 4 matches with Nick, and then taking on, you know, really newcomers, Darren Clark, Podrick Harrington, Lee Westwood, that we played together. I could write a book about them all, and it was great. But if I was to say of one particular partner, it would have to be Bernhard Langer. Yeah, I had the freedom playing with Bernhard Langer. I had huge freedom. And if you've got freedom playing golf, you tend to do well. You want to play as if it's a pro-am or play as if it's a practice round. That's what I did with Bernhard Langer, because I could make a mistake knowing that he would counteract it with a great shot. And I'd like to think that even if he doesn't say it, that he felt the same about me. And that's why we bonded so well together.
Yeah, and such a steady partner, as you say, that you know would never let you down, and was completely competitive. Mm-hmm. I've got a thing here from Ken, and hopefully you remember it as well as he did. Yeah. 1995 at Oak Hill. Yes. In the team room on Saturday afternoon with Sam, Bernhard, and Ken. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, then we'll move on. But if you do, perhaps you could share the story.
Well, let me think. I'm thinking about that time. Bernhard Gallacher, obviously the captain, Ken, our boss, and Sam and I. And I think we were about to play, Sam and I. I played the first 3 matches with Nick Faldo, and then Sam and I were put together, and I was so looking forward to it. But Sam and I were thrilled to be playing each other. We were fighting for the Order of Merit at the time in '95. In fact, it came down to the last putt at Valderrama. And Sam, unfortunately, you know, someone had to finish second. But it was Sam and I were great friends on and off the course. And to play together in the Ryder Cup with your friend is something very special. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And we both had a lot of time for each other. We both respected each other fully, and we were Scottish. And it meant a lot to us to go out in America, a couple of Scots, against, as I said, the might of America, and do well. And it was great.
You've probably summarised it pretty well, because obviously all of you there being Scottish was exactly it. Now we're going to move to Wales, though, because probably, you know, I would guess the highlight in many ways, 2010, and your success as captain. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the easiest week with the weather, as we know, but you know, summarize that experience.
It was something that obviously, you know, having played 8 times and missing out in 2008, and I was never really due to be captain. In fact, I'm sure Ken would say to you, and George O'Grady, who was the chief executive at the time, would have said, well, now we know that the Ryder Cup's going to Gleneagles in 2014. Monty, wouldn't it be right for you to try and captain a team at home at Gleneagles? And that was all sort of really set until we were looking for a captain in 2010. And I went into the meeting in Abu Dhabi, as we did in February of the previous year, 2009, with a couple of ideas for captain, certainly not myself. And I'll never forget, nobody could really make a sort of positive statement as to who should be captain until Henrik Stenson stood up. And he said, look, enough of this. He says, we've got a captain in the room already. I said, what are we talking about? There's a captain in the room. And we all looked at each other. Everybody, for these funny pauses, we looked around each other. He said, Monty's here. He's your captain. And I thought, oh, God. I said, hang on a minute. I said, hang on. Ooh, you know, one of these jobs. And it's one of these things that when's offered to you, you can never refuse. And obviously there was no refusal, and took it wholeheartedly on and enjoyed it thoroughly. What I didn't enjoy was the fact that I lost control of my players when I sent them out to battle. As a player, I always had a sort of control over my own golf ball, but sending out players, I prepared them okay, I felt, and they were prepared. They had their own coaches, they had their own players, so that wasn't my job. My job was preparation to get them to the first tee, believing they can win. That was my job. And I felt I'd done that okay, but then they set off and I lost control. Now, for someone, most of us listening I'm not saying control freaks, as we call it in England here or Scotland, but prefer to be in control than out of control. And I was one of those people that loved to be in control, and suddenly that was lost. And that was the hardest thing, being captain. I didn't foresee it happening. And I talked to Sam, I talked to José, I talked to Langer, I'd talked to previous captains, Bernhard Langer, but I didn't foresee that happening, and that was the most difficult thing. Especially when you send out players against Woods, against Mickelson, against Dustin Johnson, Bubba Watson. They had a great team. Jim Furyk, Matt Kuchar, they had a fantastic team, and it was a difficult one. But I think at home, I think our 13th man, always is the home crowd. The Welsh crowd were absolutely superb. There wasn't a Welsh player playing that particular year, which was unfortunate for them. They didn't have a Welsh captain, but they were absolutely magnificent in helping us through. And I'll never forget the crowds at all Ryder Cups, but especially the Welsh one, to help us through.
Yeah, totally. And when we got into that extra, I mean, obviously there was the Friday, which was soaking wet.
Yeah.
Saturday then inspired really to change the format to get us through that day. Did you feel that kind of really gave you that added boost that you needed?
Well, it was a decision that Corey Pavin, my counterpart, my American captain counterpart, and I had to make. And we both had to make it. He was obviously confident of his team playing 12 players at the one time. Now, Europe's strength has usually been the top 8, top 6 that we've got through. We've never really had a top 12 until recent years, a 12 that can compete. And I got them all together with the caddies in the team room. So there was 24 of them listening to what I'm trying to say here. And I said to them, look, I believe, and I've experienced this Ryder Cup, I believe you 12 are better than them. And that's all I could do, is put belief in their minds that they are better than them. And hopefully they walked out an inch taller, because what happened was, it was one of the best sessions that Europe have ever had. 5.5 points we got out of 6. And that was the winning of that Ryder Cup. We lost the singles, 7-5. But because we won that Saturday into Sunday morning, 5.5 out of 6 points we got. That was the reason we won the Ryder Cup there. And it was magnificent. The play, if anyone ever has a video of the shots that the European team hit that day, it was golden. Absolutely. I mean, there was holes in one, there was chips in, there was putts going on from everywhere. It was quite phenomenal. I couldn't keep up with it myself on the radio. It was quite phenomenal and something to behold. And I was so proud of every one of them.
Absolutely. And then the Monday came and fantastic sunshine. I was dragged in actually as an observer for Pordrake's match because some of the American rules officials had to leave, but we had a perfect day of sunshine and what an amazing conclusion.
It was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, to wake up that morning, it was foggy, and most days that start foggy are brilliant days, and it turned out that way. I think that even we had a delay on Monday morning of 10 minutes for the fog, and then when it burnt off, it was a magnificent day, and people were worried being on a Monday. It's the only time the Ryder Cup's ever finished on a Monday in its history. And people thought, oh, there'll be nobody turn up. It's a working day. It's October. It's a working day. I don't think the South of Wales worked that hard that morning. They were all at Celtic Manor supporting us. And the way it came down to the final match hasn't come down to the final match since 1991, since my very first Ryder Cup when Bernhard Langer was playing Halo in the 12th position. Hasn't come down to that until Graham McDowell and Hunter Mahan went to battle. And Graham, the US Open champion, the Wales Open champion on that course, came out trumps. And, he saved the day in many ways, but magnificent scenes on the 17th green when it all finished. It was quite dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely. A real highlight. And obviously the last few Ryder Cups have been special too. We're lucky to have Pascal Grisot as our president, and France was amazing. I
mean, France as well. You go 16, okay, unfortunate, but 18. Always I felt to regain the Ryder Cup as opposed to retain it. To win it back always meant so much more. And the way the French, that course was always built for the Ryder Cup, wasn't it? The French national course and in Versailles there. And I loved it myself, playing in the French Opens the times I did. and to watch it. I think we were in Pebble Beach playing a Champions Tour event, for goodness sake, and it was incredible to think of what happened there. And now we hold it again. And of course, with this virus, we have 3 years to wait to try and retain it again in America, which will be stunning, on a stunning golf course at Whistling Straits there. So we look forward to it again. The series of incredible Ryder Cups will take a new turn, I'm sure, and history, one or another, will be written in September, October next year. It'll be quite superb, as they all have been. Yeah,
totally looking forward to that. So just to kind of round things off, we'll go back to your playing career, and obviously you've enjoyed seniors golf, Champions Tour, and obviously success in the senior majors. I mean, a fitting way to take your career on. How have you found? How have you enjoyed that? And obviously, great to get that success.
I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I had a time in America where, I'll be honest with you, that I didn't enjoy that much. I'm sure I was as guilty as the fans were, and it wasn't a great time, to be honest, for about 10 years in America. Now it's a whole different ball game. Over 50, it's more relaxed. The competition is as strong as ever. When you think of the players I'm playing against, I mean, Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, Jimenez, Langer, Darren Clark, and then you get the Americans, Freddie Couples, Jim Furyk, Phil Mickelson, Vijay Singh coming through. I mean, I think I've just mentioned 10 guys there at least, who are world players, Hall of Fame players, major winners, who are competing at a very high level, and it's great competition. Yes, it might be jovial before the round and after the round, but when the gun goes on Friday morning, it is amazing, and it's a very great place to play. America, they do golf extremely well. We know that. They run a golf tournament extremely well, and the PGA Tour run the Champions Tour very professionally, and I'm proud to be part of it. And I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I mean, three. Suddenly, I've won a major, three majors. So I can't complain. And I'm looking forward to starting again. Obviously, COVID restrictions. Hopefully, they'll be releasing shortly, and we're able to get to Hawaii. But I look forward to playing whenever. I'm still competitive. I'm 57. I'm very lucky. I'm still competitive, and enjoying my golf more than ever I have before. Yeah.
I think that summarizes everything. And Colin, it's been an absolute joy to have you with us. It's been great. You've brought so much pleasure to us all on and off the golf course, and a fitting way for us to finish 3 days of our annual conference with having you join us. Congratulations again on the award. Thanks for taking the time, and it's very, very much appreciated. And congratulations again.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, and hi to Ken if he's managing the list, and everybody in the CPG for voting for me. And as I say, it adorns my shelf just under the Ryder Cup photo there in 2010, and it will adorn the shelf there for many years to come. So thank you very much for the voting, and honoured to be the recipient this year. Thank you very much.